right, so let's just jump on in. So from your experience, Tom, what leads employees to higher levels of organizational commitment?
I think for me, there are two kind of categories that are really critical. One of them is cultural, and then one of them is kind of how you do the work. And from a cultural perspective, I think trust and respect are just absolutely critical. And I think it's got to be that goes two ways, right? One is the employees have to know you trust them and you respect them, you respect what they bring to the table, etc. And then you also have to build their trust. So you have to demonstrate that you're trustworthy as a leader, that you're trustworthy as an organization. And then I think the respect goes the other way too, not just respecting them, but them building their respect and earning their respect. Because I think historically organizations would operate by fear. If you don't do this, you lose your job. Fear motivates people to do the very minimum required to not suffer the consequence of not doing the minimum required. Whereas respect, I mean, I think it's open-ended at the top end. And if you can earn the respect of the people that you're trying to lead and motivate, I think they'll really commit to the organization and to what you're there to do. And which is the second piece. So that's kind of the cultural element. And then if you build that culture and you have that culture, so what do you do? I think absolutely foundational is a crystal clear understanding through the entire organization of what's the vision, what's the purpose, right? Why are we here?
Right.
Versus, well, I'm here because between 8 and 5, I'm supposed to be here. No, why are we here as an organization? And more importantly, how do you as an individual fit into that? And how is what you do important to achieving that vision and that purpose? And how's it specific to you? I think for me, those are kind of the two kind of high level things that are just critical. If you don't have that, nothing else you do is going to matter.
Yeah. You're hitting all the things that we're talking about in class, by the way. So, okay. So
This
what
is
are the
fun
best?
stuff. You guys got me though, because it's
I
been,
know.
anyway, sorry, I've been on sabbatical for a couple of months. So this is great for me to be thinking about this stuff.
Good. So what are the best ways for an organization to show employees that they have that support, that organizational support? Is it really kind of what you just said in a way, or do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think I said some of it already. I mean, treat them with respect. I treat them like adults,
Yeah.
right? And another thing I kind of went through and wrote down a few things on this. Just put people over processes, policies, and rules.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things you just can't put to process, policy, and rule. And then if an employee comes to you with a certain circumstance, and you're just invoking the policy instead of listening to what they're saying and understanding the circumstance and say, well, our policy is that we only have so many vacation hours and we can't transfer them between employees or whatever it happens to be.
Whatever it is,
But
yeah.
what you're saying is your team members, this was actually an example in Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. And what you're saying is your team members want to donate your vacation to you because you have this traumatic medical event in your family. Well, our policy doesn't allow that, but you know what? We need to do that. We're going to do that. So I think that's been important. And then I think protecting them. So if I'm asking my employees to take risks on a regular basis of, hey, we've got to innovate, we've got to drive change, we've got to grow. In order to do that, we've got to take some risks. And if they take a risk and that risk isn't understood by the people that work above me, and then I get railed for that, and then that flows downstream, well, my employees will never again listen to me and take those risks. So I think protecting them and honestly, it sounds cliche, but give credit and take blame, right? I mean, as a boss, as a leader, you're gonna have to take the brunt of that kind of stuff. I think the probably the most important one there too is being there when it matters most, right? I mean, there's the day-to-day stuff, but then when employees are people at work too, and then when they have challenges that are beyond their control, things that happen in their life, that's when it matters. And being there to listen, hear, and understand, and then support them and figure out, spend the time and make the investment, figure out how am I going to help you with this? Because you're valuable to this organization. But if you claim you're valuable all the time, and then when it matters most, you're not there, then people are not going to be really feel like they have that organizational support.
How do you motivate your employees?
Oh my gosh. A lot of it's the same stuff. You're going to hear the same things from me constantly. I mean, the vision, the purpose, integrity, empowerment, humility, those kinds of things. But I think, again, for me, it starts in terms of motivating them. We kind of talked about a little bit in the first question. So first of all, build the right culture, right? Which we talked about. And then, but beyond that, what's the vision? Why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's super important at all levels in the organization then to help people understand their importance in realizing that vision. And I think that's motivating. Leading by example, I think, is motivating, is to make sure there's no we, they. So we're all in this together. And yes, my role is different than your role. And you may be an individual contributor, you may be a manager with multiple people reporting to you, and then I may have more people reporting to me than you do, but our roles are different, but we're really all here to do the same thing. And I'm not above getting in and getting the work done, but you know what? You're a lot better at this thing that I hired you to do than I am. And recognizing that too, empowering people, I think, is a critical part of motivating them. I don't like to be told what to do and how to do it. I like to be, I like to sit down and say, okay, what are we here to do? Mm-hmm. What's our vision? What are we trying to accomplish? And then once we're bought into that, it's okay, I'll figure out how to get it done, and I'll find the right resources and the right people. And I want to do the same thing. I transfer that, my own personal desires in that sense, onto my employees. I've actually had one employee tell me, Tom, I know you really like to empower us as a team, but I need a little bit more sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit more direction. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Went a little too far. And then another piece there in motivating, and again, maybe I'm transferring my desires and personality onto others, but I think it's very effective to mentor people constantly. Just help them out. If there's something, hey, wait a minute, even if it's just something it may not even be perfectly relevant to or required to do their job, but if you see, hey, that person didn't understand why that's happening over there, maybe neither one of us understand how it's happening over there, let's go figure that out together. Because that demonstrates, I think, investment. And you're not just here to meet the quota and get this thing done that we talked about getting done today, but you're here for the long term. And of course, recognizing on a regular basis and kind of a real-time basis, and it doesn't have to be fancy formal stuff. I think sometimes companies try to overdo it with fancy formal stuff and just forget to say thank you on a regular basis.
Right.
And if you say thank you to somebody for doing something that was subtle, they understand, wait a minute, you recognize that I did that. That mm-hmm. surprised me, versus it's been 8 weeks, so we have to have our employee appreciation lunch, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying don't do those, right, but it's not a substitute for recognizing things and helping your employees understand that I saw that you did that and I appreciate that. And then also the failures. I think the failures and the misses are important too. And if the misses were done in a way that are aligned with the vision and well thought through and stuff like that, but the employee took a risk to try and innovate and drive change, mm-hmm. that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they won't take those risks anymore. And I don't mean let's have a failures party, but get together and say, hey, here's what happened. What did we learn from that? Great job. I'm glad you did that and experimented in that way. And you know what? You didn't continue to throw good money after bad. You recognized when, wait a minute, that hypothesis we had was wrong, and you pivoted and went the right way. Went another way. I shouldn't say not the right way. There's millions of ways.
My son just played in a football game last night. He hadn't played in a few years. And so it was his first time to play last night. And we just moved to Colorado. Our team is not the we're not doing so hot. Anyway, it was a
Uh-oh.
horrible game. We lost 49-0.
Oh my
But
gosh.
at the end
Ouch.
of the game, I was just talking to Jaden about how every single play he gave it 110%. He didn't get discouraged. He pushed through. And I think that's kind of ties
Exactly.
into what you're saying a little bit as well. Like whenever you try to accomplish something fails, but you can still give credit where credit's due on how that particular employee, how they responded.
What was the first question you asked him after the game? Or the first thing you said to him after the game?
Are you hurt? Are you sore?
Okay, the second one. Did that hurt?
I mostly just how do you feel? Because I was trying to gauge how disappointed he was
Yeah.
with the loss.
Yeah.
He stayed strong, mentally strong, and that's what I was proud of for him. That he
Yeah,
did.
that's awesome. And you know what? Even if you lose, losing can hurt, but you could still have fun, right? And
Yeah.
did you give it all? Anyway, sorry. Back to,
Okay. The next question is about relatedness to the community, like fostering relatedness in the community. And I know I've heard different perspectives on this over the years. In fact, at one point, that it's really not even that important to do things with the community. And I'm thinking about some of the things that I've seen done, like the STEM program, going out to the schools and things like that. But what kind of advice or guidance can you give me as far as how important do you think that is for an organization?
yeah, I wasn't sure what you meant by the question originally. So what you just described helped. I wasn't sure if you meant how do you foster relatedness and community within the organization, or how do you foster relatedness to the external community, which I think it's the latter that
It's
you're
the
talking
external,
about.
yeah. And we've been talking a little bit about, the younger generation, how important that is to them. And I just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's really important. An organization that I've worked at recently, I think undervalued that for a very long time and is starting to understand the differences. In fact, what was the initiative? There was an initiative we were trying to invest in. I think it might have actually been a STEM one with somebody formerly from our marketing group. And I was told we don't do fluffy. Oh my word. In other words, we don't, first of all, you're denigrating, we don't do people and by calling it fluffy and not recognizing that, look, all you have is your people here. Without your people, you don't have anything. So if you don't do fluffy and if you don't do people, you don't have anything. So we're in trouble. And so I think it's really important because, the people that make up your employees are part of the community that you're talking about there. And having a presence in the community, it helps you in so many ways, right? Just even from a recruiting perspective of people see the presence of a company at a fundraising event or something like that for STEM, to use the example you're talking about. My wife actually went to a STEM meeting 2 days ago on Thursday night. Yeah, 2 days ago, Thursday night, where they're doing aviation stuff. But I think if the people that are there, and they're there because those things are important to them, not because they're required to be there, and then they see you there participating, and I think it helps from a recruiting perspective, and just kind of giving back to the community. People value that, and when they see organizations doing that, I think it reflects on the culture of the organization in a positive way.
Yeah. Definitely.
And again, relates to the questions you asked previously about organizational support and commitment to the organization. And people want commitment to be two ways, not one. And when they see that the organization is committed to them and by extension, their community, then I think they feel like, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to commit to this too, because this organization is committed to me and the things that are important to me.